Hello. So I did not plan this, but I just went live exactly at 4:20. I'm about to go find this link and share it places. It's been a long time since I have done a video, and I've found that sometimes whenever I do live streams, it can help me get back into the groove of making videos because I kind of just, it's like how if you want to go swimming and you have to sometimes just jump right into the deep end. That's kind of how I work sometimes. And I'm trying to get back into the habit of making videos. So let me share this link in a couple places and say hello if you are here. And yeah, give me just a second. Okay. Speaking of the pool, I just was outside hanging out by the pool. And I'm kind of tired, but I was hanging out on a raft with my eyes shut in the sun, and I was thinking about all of the things that I want to say on YouTube. So I'm going to just, do this. So the title of this, well, as I'm still sharing this right now, the title of this is called Creativity Belongs to Us, and that is the kind of guiding message that I want to talk about today. I also want to just share some general updates and just sort of chat with you guys because I kind of dropped off the face of the earth, at least compared to how much I used to be uploading. But I also posted a blog post / newsletter to Substack with the same title, Creativity Belongs to All of Us. And I'm going to be talking about some of the points that I already made in that post. But I'm going to just probably do the roundabout, talking about multiple topics at once thing that I like to do, and share just a little bit what I've been up to. Okay, yay, we've got some people here. Hi, and also I have been okay, let's just jump right into it. Creativity belongs to all of us. The reason why I want to talk about this is because I feel like I have been on a journey of reconnecting with my creative instinct, thinking about what creativity means, thinking about creativity through the lens of Jungian psychology and the shadow and stuff like that. And basically, long story short, I feel as though, like, most of you guys who watch my channel, I think, or who know me, probably know that whenever I was growing up, I was super into performing arts. I did theater, musical theater. I did dance. I did choir from a young age. I eventually took voice lessons. And in college, I even did opera. This has always been a huge, huge part of my life. And it was actually me realizing that I was not going to pursue music or theater professionally that thrust me into my very first existential crisis. I began developing my NI as a sad 17-year-old. The auxiliary function kicked in and washed over me, and that is what led me to Jungian psychology, personality type, overthinking, all of that stuff, because I basically was like, I literally don't know how to be happy unless I am creating, and I really don't know if I want to be alive if I'm not creating, because I don't really see the point, and I don't really want anything to do with whatever rules in the society or whatever I'm supposed to be content with, because I've never been someone that was very content with things. And anyway, it's like that is what led me to psychology, and for the past decade I have been completely immersed in psychology. But what I started to realize this about a year ago, it's hitting me more now, is that so much of my interest in that almost was like trying to replace my love of music and creativity and stuff like that. And I feel like I started to get to a point where I was talking about life and analyzing life more than I actually was living life. And it's interesting because, so as someone with ENFJ preferences, at a young age, you know, a lot of people say that you don't really develop your auxiliary function until you're like in your late teens. And so from a young age, I'm pretty sure I was just like FESE looping all the time, hanging out with friends, performing, doing stuff, just going through the motions. And, you know, I wasn't content with that either because I didn't know who I was and I didn't know where I was going. And I was afraid to be alone with my own thoughts. But then it's like I start developing the NI, I start to have a sense of purpose and why and understanding, and like life is so much less scary. And then, you know, developing that, I have really learned to lean on my NI to help me through everything. And, you know, that's kind of what the role of the auxiliary function is. It plays the role of the supportive parent that, you know, can, if you're scared and you need some help, can kind of help direct you where you need to go. But I feel like for me, it's like I really, you know, everyone with their type preferences, we go through these like back and forth things where obviously with a preference for feeling and intuition, I'm bound to be one-sided and overdo both the feeling and the intuition. But I feel like, you know, whenever I was younger, the feeling and thinking pendulum was very obvious. And since intuition developed later, I feel like now later I'm seeing this one-sidedness with the intuition and this in the sensing, where so much of my life, the past few years, like really all of my adult life, ever since I've been trying to be serious about what my career is and how am I supposed to make money, like, and be responsible for myself, I have been leaning 100% on intuition, trying to envision what's going to happen, what's my vision, what can I do, what am I in control of. And I've been spending a lot of time in my head and a lot of time trying to anticipate what needs to happen. And I've been spending less time just listening to the moment and responding to it with SE. And so, yeah, like that's kind of what I was going to say, is that like it's like just thinking about personality in Jungian philosophy has me analyzing what life is. And there's less of like the actually living life. There's less to analyze. I found that I was analyzing other people's stories, and afraid to really take risks in my own and do what makes me happy, which is crazy, you know. I think that everyone goes through these things in their self-growth journey, or whatever you want to call it, where you think you realize something and then it keeps sinking in deeper and deeper. And that's kind of how this has been for me. It's not that you know, it's like I've always known that I wanted to, you know, invest in what makes me happy and be myself and be authentic and all of those sorts of things. But it is crazy to me how much of that could be like you think you get it, and then again you're blind to something else, and then another wave of it hits you, to where, yeah, I mean, with this YouTube channel, I was able to find a passion for me, something that I was good at, something that could be my own. And yet, what was I doing? I was talking about everything that I've observed from other people, everything that I know about other people, and what I've understood about this whole system of personality types. And I do think that some of that came from the fact that I wasn't content in my relationships, and I didn't know I didn't know what to always expect from people. And I wanted to be better at loving people, and I wanted to be better at understanding people, and I wanted people to be better at understanding me. And I know it might sound like, since I haven't posted in a long time, and since I'm making this big disclaimer, like maybe I'm like upset with type or not as interested in it. And that's not really it. I just feel like I've been trying to readjust what role do I want personality type to play in my life, because it should be a lens to which that could add new colors and layers to the life that I'm living, that can help me enjoy the relationships that I have and the hobbies that I have in with more richness, because it helps you see things more clearly. And so I think it adds this whole layer of beauty to everything. But it's like, I want it to be adding this layer of beauty to like my hobbies. I don't want my hobby to be talking about type. I don't want my hobby to be helping somebody else be happy with themselves. I love doing that. I love it so much to where I can trick myself into thinking that that is my hobby, when really it's just something that gives me a lot of joy, something that I love. But I think it's a cop-out when anyone tells themselves that their favorite thing to do is to help others, because really the way that we help others is when we know what our gifts are and know who we are. And then you give that gift to the world, and it feels so good to be able to find a match between what you can give and what your skills are and what you are and somebody else. And so it's both. It's not, because I also don't think it's fulfilling to just do only things for you and never help anyone else. I think it's that fusion between really enjoying yourself, really enjoying doing what you love to do, and matching that with the world. It's the same as with in type. It's the introversion and extroversion combined, that sort of thing. So that's a big thing I've been thinking about. Now let me check the comments, because I literally haven't looked at them at all. So yeah, okay. So creativity belongs to all of us. Do I want to jump into that, or do I want to talk a little bit about, okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about where I'm at with my YouTube channel just for a second, and then I'm going to jump to that. So kind of what I was saying earlier about the intuition and the sensing, how I feel like I was like leaning so much on intuition. I also think that a big thing that I've realized in the past 3 years or so, which, okay, let me just back up and say, most of you guys probably know this, but just to add context, is that so I started my YouTube channel in 2017. I was unhappy with my marketing job at the time, and I was looking for a way to somehow figure out how to make my interest in Jungian stuff and typology at least more useful to me, or at least more professional to some extent, because it's like I hated my job and all I was doing was talking about type. And at that point, I'd been interested in type since 2012. That was like 2017. So it was like, I didn't think that I was going to stop being obsessed with it. And I was like, okay, well, how can I, improve this or keep going down this? And so in 2018, I started to work on my master's in psychology. And so from 2018 to 2021, like December 2021, all of my free time was working on my master's and YouTube stuff. And I was in a very committed relationship. I lived with my partner for 2 of those years. And so, as you can imagine, a lot of other focused, and I did not have much. I didn't watch TV. I didn't take naps. I didn't do much. Like ENFJs are historically bad at self-care, and it's like, okay, maybe I'm good at self-love, or I've gotten better at positive self-talk. I don't pamper myself. I don't care for myself. Another part of that is like, okay, my introverted sensing is shit. I don't like, I will forget to, okay, like light a candle or soak my feet or do a face mask or even get my nails done, which, I have my nails done. It's a thing. I don't know. I got my nails done with my sister when we were about to go on vacation last year. And I had basically never gotten my nails done since prom. And anyway, it's like there's just little things. It's like I was not, I wasn't, working out. I wasn't doing yoga. I wasn't meditating. I was waking up and going to work, and then in my free time talking to a million people all the time. And it's like, okay, this has been just a theme in my life, is always, needing to be talking to people all the time. But anyway, my point with this is that it's like once my master's was done, it was like I had so much more free time, and it was like all of a sudden, like I thought that I was going to jump in January 2022 and be like, okay, now that I am not working on my master's, I'm so excited to make more videos. And I'm so excited to make more videos. But it was like all of a sudden I had space. I had buffer time. And with all that buffer time, I have had new inspirations come up. So on that note, I uploaded today like a little visualizer of a instrumental, like vaporwave chill sort of track that I made because I was practicing wanting to sample. And I downloaded Ableton, and I took some music theory and composition classes whenever I was in college. And I've always I've wanted, like, for years to basically learn how to produce. That was what I wanted my major to be. And then I didn't get into the school to do music business and technology. And there wasn't really any around me that focused on that. And I didn't want to be a teacher. And, my parents didn't let me just apply to every job. Like, we were on a budget. I only got to apply to like a couple colleges. And so, I always had a chip on my shoulder about that, to be honest. But, it's all good. It's like now I guess I surprised myself by how much all of that buffer time made me realize, like, that there were all these things that I wanted to learn. I, for several years, had a reoccurring dream of me being in high school and like being back in high school again as like a 20 something, and being signed up for art class and trying to go to art class, and people kept interrupting me and I wasn't able to get there. I had that dream like at least 15 times in the past couple of years. And so that's another interesting thing, is that I uploaded a song today, and that was like incredibly healing for me to do. And it's crazy because I've been meaning to do this video for so long, and it's like the moment that I did that music, or that I uploaded that, I felt like it released something in me to where now my mind is less blocked, and now I'm able to do this. So that's one thing that I'm thinking about creativity, is that I think that, like I said, the title, it belongs to all of us. It's not for special people. There's not some people that are creative and some people that aren't. It is a way to process, our emotions, let archetypes run through you, let ideas move through you, it's a way to connect with things that are bigger than yourselves. So I think that it's so, so, so important for the health of literally any human to like have something that they do that is creative in nature, and also consuming things that are creative in nature. Most of us already do like listen to a lot of music or watch a lot of TV or whatnot. But sometimes you might think if you're spending all day watching Netflix, oh my God, I'm being so lazy. I would argue too that like consuming creativity is like really, really important to our psyche. If you think about everything that's stored in the collective unconscious and all of these stories that humans have told for like millions of years, and all of these characters and myths that are like there within our consciousness, it's like we need to play those out or else they're going to stay in the shadow. We want to play those out. That's why we want to watch like good movies and TV. That's why we want to create. It's why we want to write stories. It's why we want to live out crazy stories. It's because we want to experience the whole, as much of the breadth of our consciousness as we can. And we know we have it in us. And so, anyway, like on that note, so posting that link was really healing. But before I even did that, I intentionally wanted to get into visual art, and I've done some collage art and also some abstract painting. I wanted to get into it because I didn't know anything about it, and I was okay with messing up on it. Now with music, for a long time, I didn't really feel like I could just go for it and mess up, because it was something that I felt was really tied in with my identity, which this brings me to another point I was going to make, is that with creativity belonging to all of us, to bring in the psychology spin, I feel like it's really harmful whenever our ego is attached to this creative process and to our creation. And if we identify with it too much, it makes it so much harder to actually be creative and to actually let things move through you. So I've been doing improv since January. That's another thing that I've been doing that consistently. I've been taking classes, and that's been really, really fun. And it's been helping me get out of my head, and it's been helping me respond to the moment, which it's hard. I don't do well with the unknown. Like, I know some people online might like to type me as a P, or as, I don't know what type you think I am, but I literally am so rigid. Like, I am not great at responding to the moment. Like, I really am not. And I've been trying so hard to, and it's been really rewarding, but it's something that I have to work myself up to a lot of the time. But with that note, okay, yeah. So the reason I mentioned that I'm doing improv is because I've started to notice, like, the people who are the best at improv are the ones that completely let loose in the scene, and they don't know what they're doing. They're not controlling what they're doing. And you might say, "Oh, you're so good. You're so funny. How did you do that?" And then they're like, "I don't know how I did it. It just happened." And I've noticed this from lots of you. I also like to watch a lot of like music documentaries. If you hear what like really creative people have to say, a lot of the times when you ask them, "How did you do it?" A lot of times they're like, "I don't know how I did it." And I think that's really beautiful, because people, the fact that these amazing creations can come out of humans, and it's like, the way I'm starting to think of it is like, we're just the vessel for this shit. And it's so beautiful if you can take your ego completely out of it and just be open to the wealth of possibilities that our collective unconscious has already within us. If we're open to those wealth of possibilities and you just allow them to emerge without resistance and without control, so many beautiful creations can come to be. And we know, like with Jungian psychology, that whenever the two polarities, so that could be introversion, extroversion, feeling or thinking, light or shadow. When two polarities come together, then the transcendent function comes to be. And I could talk about that more in another video if you're not familiar with that concept. I've been meaning to go into that for a while, but it's like the transcendent function is kind of like what happens to your brain whenever you're using two polarities in tandem at the same time. And that's where I think the magic happens. And I know that Carl Jung was really inspired by alchemy and like ancient occult practices and stuff like that. That's another thing that I've been getting really interested in lately, is reading about like the history of esotericism and hermeticism and stuff like that. But this transcendent function is like a state in your psyche where I might even argue that it's the creative state. I don't know, but it's like you're holding the pressure of two opposing poles together, and you're allowing it, and that is when something new happens. That's when synergy is created. 1 + 1 = 3. That's when you are transformed, or something can be transformed. And whenever I do start regularly, I'm working on a content calendar for the second season of Psyche Design. And I'm also wanting to treat my YouTube channel more as just like an art project and more of just listening to my inspiration with it. But whenever, a lot of the things that I want to really start talking about when it comes to type is, how do we make this system more dynamic, or how do we think about it more dynamically? Because we know that there's more to us than just being one of the 16 types. And we know that, well-rounded people might be hard to type, or people who have played in this field of trying to use their transcendent function and use the polarities in tandem. I believe, it changes your brain. And I've been thinking a lot about how do we talk about type more dynamically, and how do we talk about it not just as let's explain all the boxes, but instead let's explain your perspective as the person who has a type. How do you deal with having a type, and what is the journey that you go on whenever you are trying to find yourself through that type? Because the type is a societal role that you're playing. It's more like your persona. The type is almost a mask that you could wear, to be honest, because it's like really not all of you. And I think that is a point that really needs to be hit home more in the type community, because I think that people would have less stereotypes about other people, but also just maybe even have a harder or an easier time typing themselves if they weren't taking it so seriously, and if they were recognizing how dynamic they really are through that. I just think that a lot of the framing of how we even talk about type sets us up to fail, and sets us up to have incorrect assumptions about the very principles of how the psyche works. So there are these underlying principles. A lot of it is Jungian philosophy that is the core of how type even works. And if we don't understand that, then how do we know how to use the tool? And so I think that's the thing, is the MBTI took Jung's model of psychological type and said, we see an end result here. We see a use case. We see how we can apply this to people who want to know what career to have, people who want to get along better and like with each other in society, or maybe you want to find a better partner, or maybe you want to like acknowledge what skills you have. And so that was for a specific purpose. And that purpose was, how do you show up basically in your persona and engage with people? A lot of times in the corporate world, I mean, the MBTI really had its jumping off point because of the corporate world. And now when you look and see how people talk about type now in like type conferences and committees and membership organizations and stuff like that, a lot of times you hear people say, we need to make sure that before we even get into explaining what type it is, we show people the end result of that. You can make better decisions, you can get along better with people, and all that. And I think that that's really great because it can get people interested. However, I've noticed that there's a danger there because if people jump right into it and they have this desire of, okay, I want to better my relationships, I want a better job, cool, sign me up, then what that does is you are going into learning about the information with that idea of what do I want to get out of this? And a lot of times people pick and choose the information they want and they toss the rest. However, this is a very holistic system. This is not like, it's not compartmentalized at all. This isn't like modern psychology where there's just, oh, there's this trait and there's this trait and there's this facet and there's this facet. No, there's no, like, this is all, we're talking about oneness here. We're talking about the psyche. Like, that sounds probably really douchey of me, but it's like Jung attempted to explain all that there is to explain, which is, when you do that, it sounds like you're saying nothing because you're trying to say everything. And it's like funny to me because I think you have to kind of understand everything. You kind of have to understand everything, like, in order to even know where to start. So this comment right here, I read somewhere that Jung was cautious about his own creation of types. That is very true. And I've been learning about this, and I would recommend reading the book MBTI versus Jungian Individuation by Steve Myers, because he is a psychologist and he is also a typologist. And so he is coming from both places, and he did a lot of research, and there's so many like footnotes and articles if you wanted to dig even deeper, where he really wanted to put the 2 and 2 together of Jungian individuation philosophy and the MBTI. And his argument with that is that the two have some differences. However, he's not saying that the MBTI can't be used or that it is contradictory necessarily to Jungian individuation. But he does bring up the question and the challenge of how do those two work together? How do we talk about the 16 types in a way that honors how dynamic our psyche really is, rather than putting people in boxes? And, you know, I've talked about basically the same point a million times on my channel, but I think the ideal with it, that I think a lot of us here already agree with, but it's like the idea is that your ego probably already has you in a box that you don't even know that you're in. And recognizing it is about breaking out of the box. However, that's where framing is important. That's why the way we frame the conversation and the way we introduce the topic, I think, is so important. Because if they're first getting into typology and they're thinking, oh my gosh, I need a career and a boyfriend or girlfriend, and they're thinking of these things of what's in it for me, they're already coming to the information from the perspective of their ego and what result they want. And so I think that's where I'm going to make this. I'm kind of getting into another topic, and so I want to go back to creativity, but I was planning on making a video called A Call to Complexity, and I'll go more into that another time. But just to wrap this up, is that I have been wanting to kind of do like a PSA to the typology community / just to myself, to where I want to be like, it's okay to talk about this complexly. We're not going to scare people off. I think that it's okay to talk to people as though they're intelligent. You know, I think that there's a lot of let's dumb this down so that people understand the value. And maybe I'm the asshole when it comes to this. Maybe I'm the pretentious asshole. I don't know. But it's like I like talking about it deeply, but I also think that there's enough people out there who want to talk about it deeply. And, you know, this is the internet. People go down rabbit holes. We're living in such a complex world right now where people are so overwhelmed with so much information. And I think that it's like everybody is trying to figure out a way to cut through the noise of all of this information that is online in case we're overstimulated and overwhelmed. But the way we're trying to cut through is by being quick and short and simple. But if you think about it, don't you think that something maybe more holistic and meaningful and complex might stand out to you amongst a crowd? If everything that you read is or see or consume is quick and simple and easy, then I might just gloss over it. At least that's how I am. It's like, I think that people right now, especially on the internet, are craving like something real rather than everybody trying to grab their attention all the time. Because, you know, I saw a stat about this the other day because I work in advertising. Apparently people see about 10,000 ads per day now. A lot of them you wouldn't even recognize as ads. And in the 70s, people saw only about like 700 or like 500 or whatever to ads per day. And it's people are learning to tune it out, and people are not falling for it's just interesting to me working in marketing and working with a lot of boomers is that I think it's going to be really funny because Gen Z, they do not give a shit about advertising. They all have installed ad blocker and they will buy YouTube Premium. They'll ignore the ads. People are getting really good at ignoring ads. And so just in general, anytime you're explaining information, even if it's not an ad, even if you're just trying to explain something to someone, I think that the whole tactic of, hey, this is how I'm going to help you, and I have what you need, and let me tell you it in 5 seconds. I think that people are not going to even want to listen to that. And I think that people are so afraid of giving away like the juice or the meat of the information because they feel like they have to catch you first before you get it. And it's like, why don't you just let people go find the meat by themselves? Why do you have to trick someone into being interested in what you're saying? Why can't you just leave out a plate of meat, and if people are hungry, they can fucking eat it? You know, like, I don't understand. Like, and you know, for so long, I've been feeling like I have to figure out a way to simplify myself and like make it make sense. But it's like, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to I'm just going to have a conversation. And if people want to have a conversation, they can. Anyway, I've been holding a lot in. I think that there was a period when I felt really at home making videos, and then I grew to really, really have a lot of resentment, I think. And so, which brings me back to the topic of this video, creativity, is that doing something where your mind is turned off and something is moving through you that's bigger than you, and you're just letting it happen, whether that's with music or like poetry or comedy or writing. When you get into that flow state, shout out to flow state. When you get into that flow state, which I'm realizing that a lot of this has been me like allowing my inner ESTP to come out, which is interesting. But sorry, what was I saying? When you get into that state, I think it's very healing and can get rid of creative blocks and resentment that make taking action in your day-to-day life harder. And so going back to the idea of creativity belongs to all of us, I think that what's kind of harmful is that there seems to be this assumption in society right now that some people are born creative and some people aren't. Some people get lucky and some people don't. And it seems to be like if you're interested in something creative, there'll be, if you're rich or if you're really good or if you get lucky, there is going to be pressure to try and make something out of it and to do it for real. Because another assumption that we have is that it's not real unless you're making money from it. And I've experienced this because, like I said, I grew up doing a lot of theater and music and stuff. I had quite a few friends from high school or people that I knew go on to try and pursue things like this for real. I had friends move to New York and try and be on Broadway. I had friends do comedy at UCB in LA and work on the sets of shows. And I have, one of my best friends has a theater degree and does nothing with it because she didn't want to go through that grind. And so I've heard a lot of stories of how, okay, my point with this, is that if you're good, it's almost like everybody around you wants to use you as inspiration and people push you to do it because they would feel better about their lives if they knew someone who made it. And they also believe that, well, if you can't make it, no one can. You're good, so therefore you should force yourself to try and go up this insane ladder where creative industry is cutthroat. And it's not fun and it's not creative, it's work. And a lot of it's the main reason I didn't want to continue singing or perform. I didn't want to live my life having to deal with all this competition. Really, I didn't care for it. So, okay, I'm just looking at some of the comments. So, let me see. So this is okay. This is just a side note. I've been doing shit like this lately where I just scribble. And it's kind of a practice of I'm just going to do what I feel like and trust my instincts and not question it. Because if I question it, then I'm blocking the flow of something. And if I let myself do it, it might lead to something. I started scribbling more, and then scribbling became the basis for some abstract art stuff where I started to get really comfortable with making marks. And then I started to do that and then do weird shit with colors where I would, make shapes out of it. So Flow State says, I used to think that being a rock star would be the greatest job there is. Now I think it'd be the worst. That's exactly it. And so bringing this back to what I kind of mentioned at the beginning of this and about how I got into type because I was so sad about giving up my dream of being a performer. What happened is it's because I didn't want to, because I couldn't make music real, I wanted to find something else that I could make real. And so instead of throwing myself in that, I threw myself in psychology. And I had a thought of maybe I threw myself in the wrong thing. Maybe I should have done this. And then I realized, no, anybody who throws themselves in one thing and abandons everything else is not going to be happy. No matter how good you are at that thing, no matter how much you love it, you're going to make yourself hate it. And NJs, I'm talking to you because we put all of our eggs in one basket. And really, it's I didn't have to give up on doing music for fun. But the reason I did was because I wanted to master something. And then that also, brings me back to our societal assumptions about these sorts of things, is that it would be great if we didn't all work an insane amount of hours to where, the 40-hour work week was designed for just one person head of household, assuming that you had some help with kids and the house. Like, now we're not paid enough. Like, once women started entering the workforce, they just realized that, oh, well, we could just pay everyone less. It's like now most people don't have the lifestyle to actually bring real hobbies into our lives because we're literally just trying to survive. And so I think it's a really it's a scary environment, I guess, where we have these assumptions of that if you want to be creative, you should try and be a rock star or make it real. And it makes sense because most of us don't have time to do shit unless we're getting paid for it, because we don't have time. And that makes me really sad, because it's like I'm trying to figure out, like, I wanted to, make typology more of a professional thing because I didn't have time to do everything that I was doing for free. And I wanted to continue doing it. And so I've tried to figure out how to make that a job. And it's like, I just wish we had more time. There's nothing wrong with taking money for things that you're exchanging, but there's such a pressure for people to do this because it's often what we have to do in order to fully invest ourselves in it. So creativity belongs to all of us. And I said in this blog post, to describe creativity in my own words, I'd say that it's the art of allowing something bigger than yourself to move through us. I said that human beings are consistently being used as vessels for something bigger than ourselves. And that Jungian psychologists tell us that human beings, we take on roles of these collective archetypes via our personal complexes. Each complex has an archetypal core, and each archetype will describe an instinctual pattern of behavior from the collective unconscious. You can have a hero archetype come through. You can have like Hermes or Aphrodite or some sort of god or goddess archetype come through. I've been very interested in reading Jean Boland's work, who is a Jungian analyst. I would love to make videos about her works at some point. But she talks about the god and goddess archetypes and how those show up as like a form of personality. And it works differently than like the 16 types because it's less about your conscious mind and how your mind prefers to work. And it's more about something instinctual that comes up. So another thing in this blog post, I said, creativity is not about the ego making its mark. The ego will accidentally make its mark when it allows itself to get lost in something bigger than itself. Any idea that's truly brilliant or transcendent is intimately connected to something else that once was, something from this collective unconscious that might just come up. And then when you're in that state of flow, your ego is simply discovering these ideas, and adding your personal twist happens naturally or accidentally. Your personal spin will occur as a miracle. So trust that. Okay, so that's part of what I wrote. And that happened to me. Like, so I posted a video, a little music video visualizer thing for an instrumental song. And once I did that last night, I ended up staying up till 3 a.m. last night. And I was just cranking shit out. And I had like two like original songs that I was working on. And I just was like, I'm just going to record the demo. And I recorded that demo, and a lot of it was kind of bad. But then some of the stuff that was kind of bad that I didn't intend, I ended up liking. And I was like, ooh, it's kind of lo-fi. So that's kind of an example of that, is that when you're not trying and you just let things happen, then your mark happens rather than you trying to control the mark. And so I'm going to have to either make a blog post about this or do a separate video all about all of the insights that I've had about type just from doing improv. Because like I said, I've been taking these improv classes. And I think that this mindset of improv has been very beneficial. And it's helped me start doing music and start doing art for fun, because you think of it as I'm going to take one step and then I'm going to react to what is here. And then I'm going to feel what I feel about what I just did. And then that is going to inspire another instinct right after that. And I'm curious, since I know we have flow state here, the ESTP, I'm wondering if what I'm saying is like ESTP 101 for you. If you're still here, let me know. Because like all of this is completely mind-blowing to me, but I also think that a lot of this is just me trying to balance out my FE and NI, like with some more SE and TI. And yeah. So all that is to say, I posted my blog post where I talked about this, and in the link, and I also shared like a collage art thing that I did with that. On that note, it's like I really burnt myself out many times in my life to where I kind of don't trust myself, and it's been really hard to stick to plans lately because I feel like I ruined my relationship with myself by overpromising and by neglecting self-care for so long that I feel like I have like commitment issues where I don't want to say I'm going to do something because I don't know if I'm going to feel like it in the moment. And I feel like this other part of my psyche came out and is just so angry with me for spending 2018 to 2021 having all my free time making videos and doing my masters. I'm so glad that I did that. I don't regret any of it. But it's like, I want to watch TV. I haven't watched TV. I haven't watched any movies. I haven't read anything. It's like I don't even have to justify any of this, but it's like I'm trying to figure out what sort of lifestyle I want to have, and like as an adult too, because it's like I think that I thought whenever I graduated college, well, one, when you're in college, at least for me, I was just going balls to the wall thinking none of this is real. I'm not a real adult. I'm just having fun with friends and I don't need a routine. And whenever I graduated, I felt like, now's the time while I'm young to push and give everything I've got because this is temporary. And I feel like I'm starting to realize like this kind of isn't temporary though, because everybody I know is struggling and living paycheck to paycheck. And I'm probably going to be living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'll get lucky one day, but it's like, it's hard to have hope for things in the future, like with the economy right now. And it's like, people are so burnt out, and it's like, I haven't really been helping myself. Like we're all burnt out to some extent, at least. If you're not, please comment and tell me what you do to not be burnt out. But it's like, it's so easy for anyone to be burnt out right now. But then I feel like I am particularly prone to burnout because I push myself to doing the most all the time without rest. And I don't know how to relax. And I'm very restless. And it's like, I feel like I'm starting to see that this is going to be a constant, and I need to, if I want to continue, it's not going to take more willpower from me. I've already proven to myself that I have willpower. But what I haven't proven to myself is that I am going to take care of myself. And so when I first graduated my master's, and like had the free time, I was thinking January and February, I'm going to start getting back into a schedule with YouTube, and I'm going to make all this content that I wish I had time to make, but I couldn't because of my master's. And it's like, I haven't done that. And there's a part of me that's really, really disappointed by that. And I feel like I've been lazy, and I feel like I haven't moved fast enough. But on the other hand, it's like, I'm so deathly afraid of getting into another groove that is not sustainable. A lot of this is trickster SI, is that I don't really know what's sustainable. And so, my preferred sensing function is extroverted sensing. And if I want to if I want to avoid getting into these SI trickster issues where I realize, wait, I've been running on empty for months, and I'm just realizing that, that doesn't work. It's like, I am going to need to really resist a lot of consistency that I wish that I could have by letting myself use SE to figure out what I want to do. And like me doing this live stream, I felt like it an hour ago, and then now I'm doing it. It's like, I think that in order for me to actually be consistent in the way that I want, I'm going to need to use SE and play with it. And I'm making a new change here, because it's like I'm trying to prioritize myself in my life and take care of myself. And it feels new to me, to be honest. And so it's like, my NI is going to also need time to figure out, how many videos do I want to do in a month, or can I do? And I think that it's like, I think a lot of NJs struggle with inertia, where it's like so hard to even just begin starting something. And I've struggled with that a lot in my life. Whenever I first started this YouTube channel, I needed to do a 30-day challenge where I did a video every day for 30 days in order to start. And I know some people have tried to say that I was an SE Dom because of that, not knowing that I wanted to start a channel for 2 years before I did that. I have always found that I have these periods where I am sitting on an idea and I want to do it, and I'm thinking about how, why, and I'm not doing it until I get to the point where I'm so mad at myself to where I'm like, just fucking do it. And then I do it, and then I'm like, whoa, that was cool. But then I think what happens is, then because I need to force myself to do it, I don't know how to sustain that. And then I feel like I have to keep at that level the entire time, when I think what I'm working on is trying to incorporate all these things that I want to do regularly into my instincts and into my habits, so that I don't have to cognitively or use my intuitive function to like decide, or like use willpower to do something. It would be great if my body got used to doing something in a way that feels really good, to where I just pick it up and do it. Like, I've started to kind of sense that with music, but not really. But it's like, I've just had my Ableton on one screen of my computer while I'm doing something else. And sometimes I'll just be like, I just kind of want to play around with some MIDI keyboard stuff. And I'll just do that for a bit when I need a brain break. And then I'm like, okay, I'm getting back to work. I think that is a perfect example of like, my body is getting used to doing that. It's becoming a habit. It's becoming an instinct. I'm like trying to train myself to do those things about the things that I actually want to do, because I'm not great at doing the things that I want to do. I've lived most of my life making a list of what does everybody else want me to do today? I better cross it off or else people are going to hate me. It's like just very suffocating. And so okay, I'm just looking at the comments right now. Flow State says nothing is sustainable. I'm starting to think that, and I mean, I've said before that a lot of the only constant is change. I also am just going to comment. Okay, I have a few things to say. I'm going to kind of follow through the comments, but okay, I'm going to say this and then I'm going to look at the comments. Before I do any of that, I'm sorry. I'm wanting to meta-analyze on, this is a great example of my NI right now, how it's like, as opposed to just doing the things that I want to say, I feel like I have to tell you the order and how I'm going to do it. I'm going to do this, then this, then this. It's like, yeah. So where this leaves me is that I have been working on a content calendar to start my podcast where I want to start interviewing more people. I also have my Substack that I linked below, and I have been wanting to do more in-depth like articles about topics such as like what is projection, what is the transcendent function, and things like that, or even like, yeah. And I want to turn those into video essays as well, but those things are going to take a long time, and I'm frustrated because I want to do it all now, but I'm having to realize that with where I am in my life, I might not even do that until next year. I don't know. Like, I'm building up to it and it's a priority for me. And okay, like, to respond to these comments, Flow State talking about KC being a relatively easy cost of living. The thing is that, so I really don't make much money at all. And I'm at the point where I can't afford to live in the city of Kansas City anymore unless I want to move to the suburbs, or unless I apply to a job, or unless I offer consulting. And it's stressful because I don't want to move to the suburbs, and it's making me think, do I even want to be in Missouri? Because if I'm going to pay this much money, I want to pay that much money in Denver. I don't want to pay a shit ton of money for a shitty apartment in Kansas City that's not walkable, it's not safe, and it's not, there's a lot of just stuff to where it's like, which goes back to why I'm saying that I don't know when I'm going to get into the flow of making video essays or any of this, because it's like I'm trying to figure out, do I want to apply for a job that will pay me more money, which I will, and I have that idea again. Then, my friend's like, oh, you should just start looking around and taking interviews on LinkedIn. That overwhelms me because I want to have a plan before I do that. But it's like, then I'm like, I want to offer these consulting services that I used to offer before. And I am also in the middle of, I need to finish like a typology certification thing that I literally am almost done with it and would be able to then offer like typing services or something. But I just need to fill out the freaking form and turn it in so that I can pass. It's like, I need to do that. And I want to offer marketing consulting, and I want to update my website, and I want to have that. But I also like don't want to just come out of the gate not even making any content and be like, okay, now here is my consulting stuff. It's like I want to make content slowly, and I want to eventually get into a place years down the road where I'm just making content for fun whenever I feel like it. And it's a habit, and it's a way I express myself. And it's also something where I can say, by the way, if you want to meet with me, I have this, but I don't really ever want to be like focusing on sales. I just want to find the right people to work with. And it's like, so it's like I want to do that, but then I feel like before I apply for a job, it would be great if I had my consulting stuff ready so that then I could apply with my resume looking a little bit better. And, you know, I'm living with my parents right now, by the way, to save money. And so it's been weird. You know, so last month I tried to put together like a 3-month little plan of like, first I'm going to do YouTube, then I'm going to do my consulting, and then I'm going to apply for jobs. And instead, what I did was have a lot of emotional crises about what I want out of my life, make a lot of music, make art, do improv classes, meet new people. And then I think, oh, I didn't do the plan. And I'm realizing, no, actually, everything that I did is exactly what I needed to do because that was fun. And, you know, just like what Flow State says right here, I'm putting too much pressure on yourself. Life isn't that serious. Yeah, I do this all the time and I don't know how to get out of it, which is, again, I know I have a chip on my shoulder about sometimes people typing me as an SE dom, but I'm seriously not. And I know that all of you guys watching probably already know that, and also it's like anybody who's on YouTube is going to be mistyped to some extent, but for whatever reason, that one pisses me off, because if you only knew how many fucking times in my life I'm told, you need to stop putting pressure on yourself. You need to stop blah, blah, blah. Why don't you just get out of your head? Why don't you just blah, blah, blah? I don't know how to have fun. I'm not fun. That's like the thing. Yeah. I am not. Like, it would be great if I was. And yeah. And now, even me saying that right now, I'm putting pressure on myself because I am fun. I'm being hard on myself. I always am. And inferior TI is a bitch. So sometimes you got to have flatmates. Yeah. So part of the issue with this is that I was in a relationship where we lived together, and now that kind of changed the way my budget was, because I'm just not sure what my next step is. So, okay. And then flow state, you need to get in the habit of meditating 15 minutes every day. So I have been kind of doing this, but I'll tell you what I have been doing very, very consistently that's been really great is morning pages and free writing every morning, where I just notate literally every single thought I have or anything I observe for 15 minutes. And I kind of can't live without it now, because it feels almost like I am unpacking and offloading things. And then I feel like my mind is so much more clear after I've done that. Yeah. So that has been the NI spiral that I'm at, trying to figure out my next steps and stuff. But I'm getting into the habit of my Substack, and I'm going to be getting into the habit of making art. And I'm realizing that when I do that, it clears my mind and it's easier to write. And so that's great. It gives me even more of a reason to feel like I can give myself these things that I love to do, because I'm realizing that it actually ends up helping me work and be more effective. And I think that a lot of times it's like the ENFJ ego, like hero complex thing can often be wanting to be like a superhuman that's always there to help everyone and always one step ahead with the end eye, like expecting what's going to happen and like always considering everyone's needs. And so hard pill to swallow is that nobody can actually be that superhuman because it's not effective. You eventually crash, and you deserve to have people like you, even if you're not performing at your best 24/7. Or it's like you can't give 110% 24/7. You can push and give your a little bit above what you think you could do ever so often, sometimes to help you get started. It's the mindset of shoot for the star or shoot for the moon and you'll land amongst the stars. But if you do that all the time, it's like you're not shooting for. It's like the whole concept in business of SMART goals, where you're supposed to have like specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, or measurable, I don't know, goals with a time limit to it. That I think is a lot more of it represents like the sensing aspect of things, where then like the shoot for the moon, you land amongst the stars is more of the intuition. The thing is that it's very hard to meet a goal if it's not realistic to begin with. And if you're not actually measuring or trying to actually reach it, it can kind of seem silly because it's like, what are you even doing if you're not even trying to get to where you say you're trying to go? However, if you're only doing the SMART goals and you're only going for what you think you can get, then you're not going as far as you could because you're only doing what you know for a fact you could do. And so there's got to be some sort of balance with those things where like you got to stretch yourself sometimes, but you can't stretch yourself every single day and expect that to be the standard. So that's one thing that I'm realizing. So, oh gosh, practice making bad decisions. Do the irresponsible thing intentionally so you build a tolerance for it. Engaging the fear instead of avoiding it. I'm going to want to hear more about that. I might even ask you to explain that to me because I'm intrigued, but I'm skeptical. But I will say one thing, like my ESFP friend told me that I should make interesting decisions, which is slightly different than making bad decisions. And maybe that's just the difference of feeling and thinking spin on it. And because I guess I'm like, bad. I don't want to be bad though. But that's another thing though that improv has been helping me with, is that you can make a bad decision or you can make a mistake and then it still works itself out. And I think that a lot of times, if you don't make enough decisions, you actually don't know that mistakes work themselves out. So this is, I think, an NJ problem, but maybe anyone who struggles with SE. But I've noticed this in particular with INFJ and INTJ, is that with the inferior extroverted sensing, it's like you're so afraid of failure and making a mistake because you haven't actually made enough mistakes in your life to have the experience of knowing that making a mistake actually isn't that big of a deal. And this is what I noticed a lot with my INFJ partner, is that the fears were so catastrophic about what would happen if this happens because you've never done it. So you don't actually know what would happen if that happens. So that's why, like, you know, SPs tend to be pretty good at like the trial and error thing. And if you think about it, like SPs, you are relying on either introverted feeling or introverted thinking as your core or your root that is like allowing you to do this. So you make mistakes And then you learn from your identity, hey, I did that. I handled that mistake. And you start to gain a confidence in yourself that I'm the sort of person that can handle if things go wrong. That is something that I would say I can at least speak for the NJs that we really need to learn is how this is, I think, related to my inferior introverted thinking and the fact that it's introverted judging and like an identity sort of function is that I need to develop the understanding that I'm a person who can handle it if things go wrong. Like I was thinking about this like with like relationships, being like afraid to put yourself out there with someone new or like afraid to get hurt. It's not even like that you have to, it's like you have to realize like if I do get hurt, I'm going to be okay. And that doesn't really happen until you have made those decisions and taken those risks and until you get to the other side. So yes. So one note on this, depends to what degree one should work on one's weaknesses. You can integrate your shadow to some degree, but it's not going to be something that one becomes excellent at. So I agree and disagree with this. I think that we shouldn't be comparing our weaknesses to somebody else's strengths because they had a different starting off point. But I also think that we set ourselves up to fail if we say we'll never be excellent at it. Because I think that what it really is that we need to release our ego's resistance and fears around whatever the shadow is so that it just happens. Rather than if I were to think, so I don't know if you guys can tell in this video, it's been a while since I've made a video, but in the past few years, I'm a lot quicker and I'm a lot more precise with my word choice. And I'm more comfortable with my TI. It's not because I'm overthinking what I'm saying. It's because I actually just trust that I know what I'm talking about. And it's because I'm not thinking about it. And I think that that's something that I did where, okay, because introverted thinking is a shadow, because it's my inferior, I have a lot of fears around it, I like to think, it's like splitting hairs. If I'm splitting hairs about being correct and being right, and I'm so worried about being wrong, then that's not a great mentality for figuring out what's true. And so I think it's like, you're right, Catherine, we're not going to be excellent at it. So it's like, if I were to compare myself to a TI dominant and be like, how come I'm not doing it like them? I want to be like that, and I'm trying to do that. If I do that, then I'm going to freak myself out, and I'm probably not going to get there. But if I release my fears around it and I just accept it, then I think that you begin to realize this is just a part of me. Like, it's almost like your conscious functions stop fixating on the small sliver of the psyche that you put your stamp in that you think is you. You realize, hey, this is also a part of me. And if you realize it's a part of you, then you can get to know it in your own time and figure out how to express it for you. And I think that what happened to me with my TI is that I feel like I've reached a level where I'm not scared of it. Well, I'm always going to be scared of it, but I'm not nearly as scared of it as I used to be. And I guess part of why I'm really passionate about wanting to figure out how to talk about these things is because I believe that that's possible so strongly. And I know how much it's improved my life. And I want to talk about that. I want to talk to more people about how we can release our fears around our shadow functions and, learn from other people who do it well without comparing ourselves or without trying to, be just as good. But also at the same time, diving into the shadow in general doesn't come without risks, and it's not super easy. So Yeah. But I've talked quite a bit. That's where I'm at right now. I'm trying to, I have a lot of like plans and ideas in the works, but instead of trying to force it and instead of trying to focus on end results and goals, I am trying to instead every single day do my morning pages, every single day find time to write and just make progress. And whenever I'm inspired, I'm going to show up here and I'm just going to sort of feel that out for a bit. And, for the longest time, I used to rely on telling people things like, oh, I'm going to do this every month or every whatever, because I wanted the social pressure to help me be more consistent. It's like I would use my own fears of what other people think about me to get me to do things. But then the more I started to release myself from the grip of just FE, which, to clarify, like, we don't ever get rid of our dominant function, but we can release a little bit of the power that our ego has over us by recognizing that there's more to the story. I think the more I started to loosen my grip on feeling like this FE of that I can't have anyone hate me, I can't let anyone down, the more I started to realize, it's okay if I make mistakes. And if somebody ditches me for one mistake, then fuck them. I don't need them in my life. I want someone to actually care about me. The more I started to think that, I became a lot less productive because I didn't have that social pressure. And so it's been really hard to figure out how else am I going to motivate myself. So anyway, thank you guys for watching all of this. It was great to read the comments. It was great to get myself back into the groove of making some videos. And I hope to see you soon. And if there's anything that you are really interested in right now, let me know in the comments, or if there's any content that you would want to see, or any conversations that you want to have. I would love and be very inspired if you all left me some comments about that. So, have a good evening, everyone.